If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank LOTIERZO, former writer, try to be full-time observer, joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, Jack Hirsch. Jack, hope you had a great weekend, as I did. Are these the doldrum days of the sport with not much happening?
Well, a week ago, a lot was happening, and things pick up, but there are a number of good fights. I mean, a lot of the news taking place outside the ring is sometimes better than the news in it. You know, the soap opera.
That's not a good. That's not a good. That's not a good look. But yes, you're right.
My wife's interested in boxing, but she won't watch any of the matches. She just likes the soap opera stuff that goes on, and we're getting a little of that. And even today, the news that came in, the news that we thought, Frank, was a possibility. But it
looks like a reality.
Well, Matt Christie reported in Boxing Scene, and Matt Christie was my former editor at Boxing News. He's a very credible guy. I got a great relationship with him. And he did a story. It looks like it's going to New York, the Fury-Joshua fight. Now, I know that fight doesn't mean much to you, but that's not the point, Frank. The point is that would have been one of the biggest fights in the history of the UK. Whether it was worthy of being so or not, the bottom line is it would have been the most anticipated to be fought in the country, in the UK. How on earth is it winding up, you know, at Madison Square Garden?
Didn't I read a time change? They don't want it to start before 2 a.m. so they could fit the global market.
I can't believe something couldn't be worked out. They couldn't do the fight sooner when the weather would be a little warmer. Also, November, the weather in the UK could be a little rough. It would be rough anywhere on the East Coast. I mean, the Ali Norton fight, the third fight at Yankee Stadium, they'd have to keep a towel on them. It would be like chilly, those ballpark fights. But
that was the end of September.
But I'm going to tell you, it's ludicrous. If I'm in the UK, I wouldn't travel over for the fight. Now, if anyone hears that who's in charge of credentials, and because I write for a publication in the UK and Matchroom Boxing is probably in charge of press credentials, I might be hurting myself by saying this, you know, now repeat it, what I just said. I would not come from the UK and travel to New York to see the fight. I would be so ticked off and so insulted. It would be like the Jets. I got on a Jet jersey. Imagine them playing the Giants in the Super Bowl. Now, that's the fantasy of all fantasies. I realize that you don't have to crack a joke about it because it is funny.
I'm not going to.
I just thought of that. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. But can you imagine them having that fight somewhere like Japan, for example? They're playing the Super Bowl game in Japan or wherever, Spain. It would make no sense at all. And
Jack, it's boxing. Boxing never does the right thing. It's like, I don't know what it is, but it just never does the right thing. Do you think that fight, granted, I know who the names are, and the names are, even in the United States, even though boxing is not a high priority, the names are known in the United States, but do you think that'll sell out the Garden?
Oh, it'll sell out the Garden, but that's not the point. The Garden is going to seat, what, about 20,000 people? And Wembley Stadium is going to seat a good 80,000, 4 times the amount. And the UK, it's 2 UK fighters. They've been talking about this mega fight in the UK
since 2010.
For years and years. But this is what bothers me, okay, the most. That we both know, and I know you're saying, well, the sport is selfish. If both Fury and Joshua absolutely insisted the fight be in the UK and refused to fight anywhere else, the fight would wind up in the UK one way or the other. I don't know when they'd make it. They may may have put it off an extra 5 months until April or whatever. They would have had so-called easy tune-ups in between, even though, as we saw, Joshua Pranger, there's no such thing maybe as a short thing and a tune-up. But the point is, the fighters keep talking about, well, giving to the fans. And the fans have been so loyal, their fan base, to both Fury and especially Joshua. I don't want to hear the talk. They wanted it in the UK and they're putting the blame elsewhere. They have all the say, at the end of the day.
But Jack, because the money is so good, they probably just don't want to rock the boat. And because it's been supposed to have been happening for so long and it doesn't, I mean, do you really want to take a chance that they push it back, say from November to March? Who the hell knows what could happen between now and then? One of them gets hurt or something. It's like, I'm not totally sold it's even going to happen as it stands, but it looks like it's going to. But if it didn't happen, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. If there was a chance of it not winding up in the UK, they could have fought this summer instead of the tune-up. The fight could have taken place late September, for example.
As it should have.
Right. They could have continued training the whole way through. And you keep saying the money is so good. The money's so good for who? Both fighters would take a
Both fighters, right.
Both fighters, let's say, and I'm just guessing here. I'm just throwing a number out. I don't know what the exact number is, that I think both fighters are going to be getting in the $80 to $90 million range.
That's crazy. On that.
Okay, I don't know the exact total, but let's say.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that might be true. That amount is just crazy. Where does that money come from, Jack? Where does that money come from? That fight on Netflix will generate so much interest that they can afford to pay Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Let's just say you're off a little bit. Let's just say it's $60 million. Where does that money come from?
Well, Netflix has a ton of subscribers, and the way Netflix keeps.
But they have it. But Jack, I've had it way before that Joshua and Fury were even talking about fighting. Nobody's buying it for that. Do you think people are going to say, "Let me get the Netflix platform stream so I can watch Joshua and Fury fight"?
Well,
and if they did, how many would they get?
Keep in mind, Netflix already put on, Tyson, Jake Paul. They put on, I think, Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul. Was that on Netflix? I think that was on Netflix too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was.
Yeah, but how is the zone supposed to feel? They build up Joshua. They build up Eddie Hearn's fighters. They had Fury, and now it goes to Netflix. But whatever. But the point is,
and Netflix is doing a documentary on Joshua. You know that, right?
Listen, to me, Joshua and Fury. Joshua and Fury. They don't have to fight again to be more than set for life financially. They've made incredibly filthy money.
They're both worth over almost $250,000.
They're
both worth about $200 million, give or take.
Right. Okay.
Without this fight.
Okay. So let's say instead of getting 70 to 80 million or whatever the numbers, and I wouldn't be surprised if the number was over 100 million for both. Just said a conservative number, but let's say they gave up 1/3 of that. And I know the way I'm sounding, it sounds a little hypocritical. Oh, you're telling someone to give up $30-40 million. That's not reality. But when you keep talking about your fans who are with you the whole time, and it's a UK fight, they're abandoning their country. You want to know something? I'll go a step further, Frank. That's a lack of patriotism by both Fury and Joshua. A lack of patriotism. They're saying basically bleep you to their home country. I'm going on.
And that shocks you? That shocks you? That doesn't shock me. They don't care about the fans.
They don't care about their country. This is more than just fans. This is something for the UK. They don't give a darn about the UK, their own country where they live.
That doesn't surprise me at all, Jack. Not when you have that kind of money, you can do what you want.
Listen, I'm a New Yorker. if the fight's taking place in New York the way it looks like it is, yeah, I'm going to want to go. I'll be excited. It's a fascinating heavyweight matchup. I know how little you think of the matchup, but when you look what's out there in the heavyweight division, it's the brand. They're big names. One of
I
them,
can't dispute that.
I mean,
I just don't think the fight means anything. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scope of things. We got to see Joshua and Fury fight, both as old, washed up fighters, where Fury can't move anymore. Joshua can't take a punch anymore. What does it solve other than it's a night out and something to talk about? But it doesn't really solve who was better or who in their prime. It really doesn't. It really doesn't settle much, except one guy's going to have bragging rights.
I kind of wonder too, Frank, will this fight create as big a buzz as maybe they're counting on in the United States? I mean, some fights just don't take off, and they're not American fighters here. I know everyone is familiar with Fury and Joshua, but correct
Well, that was
me
my
if I'm
point,
wrong.
Jack. They know their names, but do they care about them? Who in the United States cares about Anthony Joshua?
I mean, we cared about
And Fury even less.
Tyson versus Holyfield. People would talk about, as the fight was nearing, the day of the fight. Oh, I'm watching Tyson Holyfield. It was a real event. Fury Joshua.
And Tyson Holyfield, Jack, did agree to fight in '89, and then Tyson got hurt, and then that messed up. And it didn't happen and then Tyson lost to Douglas, and then he had the issue when he was convicted of rape in '92. But they did agree in '89 when both of them were, well, Tyson was at his peak. I don't think Holyfield was, but it was close. It's like they didn't run around the world ducking each other. Once that fight became realistic, Tyson did accept the fight.
Now, if someone wanted to argue my point, they come up with this weak argument. They say, oh, well, look at Ali and Foreman. They didn't fight in the United States. They went all the way to Zaire in this. And it was different at that time. The heavyweight championship was global. Fury and Tyson Fury and Joshua isn't it's not a heavyweight championship fight, number one, even though they might try to throw a belt in front of one of the guys some way, some ridiculous how, whatever. But if ever a fight was built for a country, that would be the fight. It's like the fight that just took place in Japan, Inoue and Nakatani. That two Japanese guys. Could you imagine them fighting it out in Madison Square Garden, how insulted the country of Japan would be? It was a natural for that country.
But I'll tell you what, Jack, if they could have made more money fighting in Madison Square Garden than they did in Japan, they probably both would have done it.
But neither guy, I can understand if a fighter hasn't already made filthy money in his career.
Right.
I can understand
they have.
that. I'm not
Nakatani and Inoue haven't, but Joshua and Fury have. But Jack, remember though, when Ali and Foreman fought though, remember, the dictator Mobutu put up the money, the most money, the quickest, and there were tax reasons why they went there, because the natural place would have been New York. And back then, New York and the taxes, we saw Ali and Frazier got $28 million and they walked away with 400 or 500,000 in their pocket. So, and Foreman was big in it, trying not to, get taxed that much. So that's sort of why that happened. But again, that fight boxing was global, and they were both known throughout the world.
Yeah. So it looks like Fury Joshua is coming to New York, and I wonder what the response is going to be in the UK. And I'm going to tell you this, Frank, if the fans in the UK fly in very enthusiastically to New York, I've kind of lost respect for them. Then I'll say, good, you're getting what you deserve. If you'd actually support these guys after what they did to you, then I no longer am sympathetic,
But Jack, that's how fans are. They don't care, especially boxing fans. They'll buy almost anything and they'll live and die with their fighters. That's just the way it is. And Jack, remember, today, August 3rd of 2026, it looks like it's going to happen in New York. If I had to bet money where it was going to take place, I don't know if I would bet New York is the sure deal. There's still a lot of time left where they could change things around. Like you said, the fighters could say, hey, look, we're going to give it to our home people. They're the ones that deserve it. You know what? Maybe we're not going to fight unless it's there. So it's a long way from being settled.
It's close to being announced, reportedly. Maybe you're right, Frank, but reportedly it's close to being announced it's going to be in New York. Maybe at the last moment, one of the fighters, like Anthony Joshua, will say, no, it's either the UK, I'm not fighting, case closed. And rather than let it all fall apart, you never know. You never know. And one fight that's not taking place, and it's a shame. I mean, it's not. It would have been a tremendous matchup. Keyshawn Johnson against Devin Haney. It went to purse bids. There were only 2 bids. One was a token bid by Teofimo Lopez's company. I didn't even know Teofimo had a company. You know, these fighters, and I like the Lopez's a heck of a lot. I do, you know. He came on the show, our show, Tio Senior. But that's, let's face it, they're a minor league company, a tiny company. So they weren't going to come up with a serious bid, even though they bid over $2 million. That's not a serious bid for a fight like that. And Top Rank was the only other one that bid over $8 million. So Devin Haney was going to get a little over $6 million plus, and Keyshawn Davis was going to get $2 million plus. Now, Keyshawn Davis isn't one of my favorite fighters personality-wise. I mean, look what he did in Virginia. He comes 4.5 pounds overweight. He's from Virginia. He says, screw you to my fans. Doesn't even try to make weight. They have to cancel the show, but that all his loyal fans turn out to. And then when his brother loses a decision on the undercard that night, him and one of the other Davis brothers, they go in and they attack the opponent physically. So really, the man should have been not only suspended from boxing for a period of time, you know, for flagrantly not trying to make weight, but, you know, more serious than that, Frank. He should have been
could have been charged with assault.
He should have been charged with assault, been brought in front of a judge, and the judge should have treated him like anyone else in an assault case. But this is boxing. He gets to keep his ratings. They promote him. He doesn't miss a beat because boxing is run, you know, in a disgusted way. I don't have to tell you that. Boxing is the worst administered sport of all as far as integrity and doing things the right way.
Right.
You know, so what happens? Keyshawn Davis continues to call out all the big names. I was at a press conference that Top Rank had a few months ago to announce the new television deal with DAZN. So they brought out some of their better fighters. Keyshawn Davis was one of them. Abdullah Mason was another. Bruce Carrington was another. Keyshawn Davis is taunting them the whole time, challenging them, taunting them, ranking on them. And it's like, I want to fight everyone. I want to fight him. I want to fight him. He has a fight with Devin Haney. I'm surprised that Haney stepped up. Big respect to the Haneys. Haney took the money, and for Devin Haney, a little over $6 million isn't outrageous. It's not at all. No. It's not like, wow, I can't get that later. He has the ability to get that later if he didn't take this fight. He steps up and he takes the big risk to fight Keyshawn Davis, who, by the way, Frank, I probably would have picked to beat Devin Haney had they signed the contract. I probably would have picked him by a close decision to edge Devin Haney out. Keyshawn Davis, the big mouth that challenges everyone. He calls himself Keyshawn Businessman Davis. He chickens out. He chickens out. He doesn't want a little over $2 million isn't enough for him, even though, to my knowledge, it was going to be twice the amount he ever got in the previous fight. So you roll the dice, you win the fight, you beat Devin Haney. You know how big Keyshawn Davis would be if he beat Devin
Jack,
Haney.
he's figuring that he may not win the fight. He could lose a close decision. Now he has one loss on his record, and it's hard for him to promote himself as the killer that he is today as an undefeated fighter. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm just saying that's the fighter's way of thinking today. And I would have taken Haney in that fight had they fought. But I think that has a lot to do with it, where he's thinking like, is this enough money to sell my O for? And I just think a lot of times that is part of the decision-making process. And I think the Davis process that, yeah, I think I'm going to win. I know I'm going to win, but I might not. And if it's $2 million, say he gets 2.3, he nets about $1 million, and now he's no longer a part of the undefeated.
Yeah, guys can come back. Listen, if he lost to Haney, it would probably be a reasonably close fight. Okay, reasonably close fight.
Agreed.
He can come back from that without question.
But it's early in his career, Jack. How many fights has Davis had? What's he got, 23 fights?
I'm not sure the exact amount, approximately.
But it's still kind of early in his career. He's just now becoming a name.
Frank, he's been around a while. He's been around and he's been challenging everyone. He's one of these guys who's arguing he can't get a fight. You know what this is the equivalent of? This is the equivalent. Him turning this down is the equivalent of Shakur Stevenson finally getting the big fight and not liking the money, even though it will be a career high payday, so he doesn't take it. If Keyshawn Davis is as good as he says he is, and he's been challenging everyone all over, running his mouth, you take the darn fight, you go out there and you win. If you win, you're a legitimate star.
I totally agree, Jack.
Star.
But that's a big if. Let me ask you this. What do you think? Let's just say Keyshawn Davis called up Floyd Mayweather and said, what would you do? What do you think I should do in this situation? How do you think Floyd would counsel him? What do you think his advice would be? You think he'd say what you just said, take the fight and then win, and then you bet on yourself and now you can be the man? What do you think Mayweather would say at this point?
You want to know something, Frank? You tend to pick on Mayweather, and I understand why.
But Jack, wait a second. Answer my question. What would he say? And then rip me for picking on Mayweather. What do you think he would say?
I don't know what Mayweather would say at this point.
Jack, you talk on a lot of things that you don't know for sure. That's why we're here. What do you think he would say? You can never be proven wrong or right. What do you think Mayweather would say?
He's not Mayweather's fighter.
What do you think Mayweather would say as an advisor, as an ambassador to the sport at nearly 50 years old, and he's a young guy, a young champion in his prime, calls Mayweather and said, Floyd, look, here's the deal. Here's what I got. You know about Haney. You know me. What would you do? If I said to you, your life depends on it and you have to read his mind, what do you think he would say?
I would tend to believe Mayweather would tell him to decline the fight.
I rest my case. I rest my case.
What does that have to do? Listen, what happens? Okay, and if I said
Jack,
what happens
it makes my
Lennox Lewis, what would Lewis say? Lewis would say you absolutely go in there and take the fight.
You're right, Jack, but Floyd Mayweather set the template for this generation from 2000 to now of how the fans think about fighters, how they look at fighters, and the business model. And everybody wants to model after Mayweather. Remember, he did the same thing. He turned down fights and thought $3 million. Think 15, 20 years ago, he said $3 million were slave wages. What would he say to Keyshawn Davis today? He would say, and Jack, that's my point. Let me finish. That's my point. Jack, that's my point. You say I pick on Mayweather, and I do. And this is why. Because he set the tone for the way the younger fighter thinks today. You trade on the O, and once you lose the O, no matter who it was, if Joe Louis came out of his grave and beat Keyshawn Johnson, people would still look at him as a defeated fighter and no longer worth their time. And the fact that, and I know you're honest, and I knew you were going to say, you know that Mayweather, forget about if it's wrong or right. The fact is, the guy who's the most influential fighter to today's younger fighters, they would lean on him for business advice, and he would tell him not to take the fight. And in my opinion, and in my mind, I believe that thinking is going on in Keyshawn Davis's head, and that's why he's declined it. I don't know if he talked to Mayweather. Obviously, we can't know that, but I think that mindset has been brewing since Mayweather started it in 2007 when he fought De La Hoya. And the last 10 fights of his career, he traded on the O.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Cases are different. Andre Ward retired undefeated, but he had to take a chance with Sergey Kovalev, and a lot of people thought he lost the first fight. And Mayweather did take chances during his career.
But Jack, he took them under his terms. Yes, he did. He took them under his terms. And when you talk about Andre Ward and Lennox Lewis, if he called them, but why would he call them when Mayweather probably made 2.5 or 3 times as much money as Lennox Lewis and probably 10 times more than Andre Ward? He would talk to the guy that is supposedly the business mind and master when it comes to boxing.
Shakur Stevenson, he wants to fight Devin Haney. He's unbeaten, Shakur Stevenson. Haney's a risky fight. Would you agree with that? He poses a risk, a legitimate risk to Stevenson, even though I picked Stevenson.
Yes, Johnson poses a risk, no doubt.
No. Haney poses a risk, I'm saying, to Stevenson. You said Johnson.
Again, yes.
Yes. Okay, but Stevenson is unbeaten. He's not protecting his own, except for this. He insists the fight be at a catch weight because he doesn't want to go up to 147. That I don't like, but I don't think he's doing that to protect his own. His mentality is, I'm a natural 135-pounder. I moved up to junior welterweight 140. I don't want to move up to 147, but I'd like to fight Haney. So let Haney meet me at 144. We'll do it catch weight.
I agree. And you know what I like, Jack? You know what I like? I like when we disagree and then we continue, we take it down the road even more, and you come back and you make my point maybe better than I did. Now, yes, Stevenson would do that, but why? If Stevenson and Haney signed a fight, who would be the favorite?
Stevenson slightly.
Stevenson, okay. How many times did Floyd ever sign a fight when he wasn't the favorite? We can't come up with any. Okay. Now,
he was even Stevenson with Gennaro Hernandez. He was a slight underdog.
Okay, but he wasn't a named fighter then, like he was a little bit later. So my point is, if Stevenson, if the Haney fight was offered to Stevenson, and you said, well, he's not thinking about protecting his record, and you're right, and he would bring him down in weight, which is a little bit Mayweather-ish, even though it's legitimate, it's still Mayweather-ish. And the fact is, Stevenson would go off as the favorite in the fight. So he's still not taking the big risk that Keyshawn Davis is for the short money.
You forget Haney's unbeaten technically.
You're right.
Lost was.
But Haney has something to lose if he beats Stevenson, Jack. I mean, something to gain big.
Yeah, of course. But Stevenson, same way. And Haney would be getting X amount of money as the champion for the fight. But we're missing the point. The point is Keyshawn Davis, okay? Reportedly, the reason he didn't want to fight is because the money didn't measure up for him for such a big fight to only get a little over $2 million. If Keyshawn Davis was offered, let's say $6 million, and Haney was offered $9 million, Keyshawn Davis would take that fight.
You're right. He would, but he wasn't. He wasn't offered that.
No, he wasn't. But if you want to become a megastar in the sport and you really believe in yourself, you take a chance. And the worst that'll happen in reality is he would lose a highly competitive, reasonably close
Jack, but the thinking,
and he would still be marketable because boxing's about personalities. Ryan Garcia gets trounced by Raleigh Romero. It didn't affect his career at all.
Ryan Garcia is a bigger brand than Keyshawn Davis is. Jack, you're right. You do take your chances, but at the end of the day, as Floyd would look at it, this isn't the one to take the chance on. And so we no longer beat a dead horse. Let me just ask you this. When I say to you that Mayweather has cultivated the culture regarding being undefeated, when to take a risk, and all the things that encapsulate his career outside the ring about how he managed himself, do you disagree with that? Do you disagree with the fact that the way fighters look at things today, they look at it like him? Mayweather said, screw the fans. When you're broke or if you're injured or whatever happens, they're not going to be there for you. So soak them as much as you can. Stay undefeated. Pick your spots and pick the risk. Do you disagree with me when I say that he had? You do.
No, I'm not saying I disagree, and I can't. It depends on the individual case, Frank. Look,
across the board.
Terence Crawford was unbeaten in his whole career, never lost, retired unbeaten. You mean to tell me Crawford wasn't taking risks all along?
Crawford, Jack, no, Crawford was more of a throwback, and he believed in himself so much that he was just willing to take on all comers. And like Bernard Hopkins, took fights on short notice for short money and just said, you know what? I'll never get out of shape. They'll never catch me off guard. And eventually they'll have to pay me because I'll beat everybody. Where Crawford kind of did the same thing. So Hopkins was before Mayweather, so he wasn't influenced by him. And Hopkins is every bit the businessman that Mayweather is. But Crawford is the one guy that didn't follow the Mayweather template. All he did was say, I'm going to make sure I take care of business in the ring. And when I do that, everything else will work out.
I'll give you another example. Nayo Inoue, unbeaten. He's taking risks against Nakatani. And he'll probably wind up fighting Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez. Both of them are taking a massive risk by fighting one another. And someone's has to go.
But Jack, look at the upside for the winner, though. Keyshawn Davis doesn't have that against Devin Haney. He gets a little bit of a boost, no doubt. But it's not like when Bam fights Inoue, like the winner of that fight will be perceived as the best fighter in the world as far as the sport of boxing goes. Keyshawn's not going to get that if, and it's a long if, in my opinion, that he would beat Haney.
Well,
because I just don't think he's big enough, and what he does, I don't think he can hurt Haney, and I think Haney can outbox him, and not worried about getting hurt like he was by Garcia.
Yeah, perhaps, but in any event, but the point I wanted to make is, for all of Keyshawn Davis's talk, he's one of the loudest voices in boxing, telling us how great he is, that he wants to fight everybody, and people are ducking him. He can't get a big fight. He gets it, and he doesn't take it. And
okay,
maybe it's a smart business decision, but he strikes me as a little bit of a paper tiger.
Jack, and here's my retort to that. Okay. Who talked more crap than Ali? Okay? Nobody. But he just happened to be one of the guys that backed it up. Okay? But Floyd Mayweather, Tyson Fury, since Ali, nobody talks more shit than he did. And you know what? They never back it up. Fury never went out of his way to fight the best guy. Mayweather never went out of his way to fight the best guy in his prime when there was something to lose. So the fact that Keyshawn Davis talks a lot of smack, Jack, we know that it's building your brand and getting attention. You don't have to back it up. I mean, Mayweather said he would fight Winky Wright and made him look good. He never had to back it up. Where Thomas Hearns was willing and would have fought Mike Tyson, and we both know if he was offered the fight, he would have done it, and he wouldn't have cried about the money. But he was just cut from a different cloth. All these guys post Mayweather, Jack, think about their O and the dollar sign before anything. And you really can't kill them for that, because you know what? If they end up afflicted with brain damage, and you kind of got on me for what fight, that Spence may have taken too many punches. I didn't think it was all that bad, but if you're right, and in 10 years or 15 years, Spence is on his heels, and most of his money's gone, what fans are going to come and help him out and say, well, you know what? You agreed to fight Crawford. You came back and fought Tszyu. Nobody will look after them. And that's what I'm saying. That's how Mayweather has affected the sport. And that's my problem with him. And I think it's a bad model, Jack. And that's why today everything's pay-per-view.
Yeah, well, but getting off that, there was a good fight this past weekend. William Cepeda appointed Lamont Roach, and some wins and some losses, they really age well or they age bad. And in the case of William Cepeda, it made Shakur Stevenson's victory over him.
Look even better. It aged well, yes.
Very, very well, because he beat Cepeda decisively over the distance, and Cepeda scored a hard-fought, legitimate, well-fought decision over Lamont Roach.
And he changed his style a little bit, and he gets credit for that.
And it doesn't make Tank Davis look too good. Tank's been off a while. He's had trouble with the law. We don't know what the heck is going on with him, but it appears in all probability Tank's is a career that's never going to reach its full potential, no matter what he does from now on.
And we thought that all along. You just knew by his lifestyle and everything around him. You kind of figured that it was never going to be all it could have been.
Yeah, and Tank, he could still figure in a big fight if the legal system, allows them and things pass. We don't even know what's going on with them with the legal system. Now it's kind of went quiet. But if Tank was allowed back in the ring, he'd have no shortage of opponents. People wanting to fight him. So he would be in demand. Be it a Ryan Garcia rematch, maybe Garcia would want it. There's a lot of money. Shakur Stevenson, in that fight, there was talk even of Nui moving up in weight and Stevenson fighting, not Stevenson, Haney, not Haney again, Tank Davis.
Tank.
I'm sorry.
Tank.
That's a double mistake. Tank. Some people feel he could still make 130 if he had to. So we'll see.
Jack, now, speaking of your boy Garcia, is the fight, it is official with Garcia and Conor Benn, right?
Conor Benn. I don't know where you get he's my boy, but I backed him at times.
You bring him up a lot, that's all. But let me ask you this. When is that fight? I forget. When is that fight? That fight's in the fall, right?
Yeah, in middle of September.
Middle of September. And they're fighting at 47?
Yeah.
Who do you like in that?
I like Garcia because he's more versatile. Conor Benn basically fights one way. He's aggressive, throws a lot of punches, has a good motor.
And he's not a life taker as a puncher.
A lot of stamina. Yeah, exactly. Garcia's just more versatile. Maybe Conor Benn outworks him. It is a good matchup.
I could see Garcia setting him up with a big shot and that being the difference.
Yeah, you could see Garcia maybe taking him out, you mean?
Setting him up for the big shot where Ben is more busy and maybe even gets the better of it a little bit early.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But
it's a good fight to look forward to, though. I mean,
the fight I'm looking forward to before that's going to be, in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from this Saturday is going to be Teofimo Lopez-Rally Romero. Good matchup. Not that I'm playing Romero. I want to make a comment on the undercard, of Lamont Roach, William Cepeda. The names escape me this moment. Tony Weeks was refereeing. He stopped the fight with 12 seconds to go. Before that, in recent times, Tony Weeks had two horrendous stoppages. One was Virgil Ortiz against the fighter Frederick Lawson, stopped it way too soon. And the other one, Ismael Barrasso, was beating Rally Romero in 2023 clearly. and mysteriously he stopped the fight. Now, do I think there's any hanky-panky with Tony Weeks doing anything unethical? No, not at all. I just think he's a terrible referee now, has terrible judgment, and I question whether he should be refereeing anymore. He's an awful ref. That's what I mean. I don't mean a dishonest ref. I have to believe he's honest in his calling.
He's just incompetent.
He's just bad. I don't want to. I hate to use. That's one of these warning things we've been getting in this building, Frank.
I got them. We got them earlier today. The flood watch.
Yeah.
Is that the flood watch warning?
I would be worried about it, except no, not flood. It was like a fire alarm thing, but the water, there was a malfunction. The fire department was there all up early. So I'm sorry.
But today, when I was in class this morning, we had my phone went off 5 or 6 times for a flood watch. And you know what? For a little while,
whenever you talk, I'm going to mute. When I talk, I'm going to get the.
It was the alarm went off like 5 or 6 times for the flood watch, and the roads did really fill up fast. You could see the roads gushing into the sewers, and it just couldn't get through fast enough. So, but it is basically a little bit past the middle of summer, so we get this kind of weather. It happens.
Yeah.
I just don't like it, Jack, because my garage door broke and I can't get my motorcycle out for a couple days.
Yeah. Frank, I might give it to you for 1 minute because I just want to check one little thing with this. 1 minute for you alone.
Go ahead.
Okay?
All right. So anyhow, Jack is checking, making sure that his house isn't going to blow away because of the weather. And I will go on and say that the reason why guys don't fight today and they pick their spots and they will turn down millions of dollars is because Floyd Mayweather set the template. If you remember when he beat Arturo Gatti in 2005, on a pay-per-view card that he and Gaddy headlined at the convention center in Atlantic City, the first thing Mayweather said after the fight, and that was the last time I believe Mayweather fought where the other fighter made more money. I believe when Mayweather fought Gaddy, I believe Gaddy made $250,000 more than Mayweather. And the first thing that Mayweather said, I believe it was to Larry Merchant, was, from now on, I'm a pay-per-view fighter, and everything now is pay-per-view. And from that point on, shortly after that, he fought De La Hoya. They did 24/7 with De La Hoya. Mayweather donned the black hat, and that was the beginning of Floyd Money Mayweather, when he just piled on the last 9 or 10 wins of his career for outrageous numbers. Jack, is your house going to blow away?
Yeah, this is something I should look into, Frank. If Brian, our producer there, maybe he could finish up with you the little bit time we have left. So Brian,
what's going on, Jack?
Come on. No, it's the fire alarms are going off, but it went off 4:30 in the morning.
Oh.
On the unlikely event, could you imagine I'm talking with you and it's a real thing?
Okay.
Brian, I better deal with this, at this second. To start. Next week, we have Bobby Cassidy Jr., by the way. He's going to talk about the book he wrote about his dad that just came out.
He's a good guest. We'll have him on again. That's great.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Jack.
Okay,
see you
guys.
next week.
I'll see you.
All right. All right, Brian. So we can kind of go a couple different ways here because you're a big sports fan. I don't think you're not a big boxing fan, right?
No. Not
Did
really.
you ever follow it? Do you have favorite fighters? Like, what's your tie into it? Or do you just listen to me and Jack go back and forth?
The 90s were basically what I got out of boxing. So Tyson, Marvin Hagler, Sweet Pea Whitaker, those types of fighters.
Lennox Lewis.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 of those guys, De La Hoya. You know what, Brian? That was actually a good era.
Yeah.
Some people, the 80s and the 90s, I like the 60s and the 70s, but the 80s and maybe the first half of the 90s, boxing was still pretty much in the news and an upper tier sport. Now, MMA started in 93. I don't think that eclipsed boxing until like the mid the mid 210s.
Yeah.
And I don't even think MMA is why boxing has declined. I think boxing has declined because what I said about Mayweather. I just think, and I know Jack disagrees, and I like that he made a couple of my points even better than me. But the fact is, Floyd looked at the sport and said, okay, I look back and I see the greatest names in boxing. Let's just say, to me, the three stalwarts are Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Muhammad Ali, chronologically, okay? Well, they all had health problems when they retired, okay? Lewis and Robinson had financial issues later in life, bad financial issues, and Ali could have been in that class, but by then his name was so big, he sold his name for like $50 million and trademarked it, and so he lived a good life financially. But I think Mayweather looked at it and said, look, nobody's going to care about me when I'm an old man. Like today, they say Thomas Hearns is hurting financially. You know, he has to have a stewardship, and, you know, he doesn't, and Thomas Hearns is my age, exactly my age. And, you know, his health doesn't look like he's getting around all that well. So I think a guy like Mayweather said, look, the hell with the fans. They don't care about me, especially when I'm gone or when I lose. So he traded on the O and just says, well, who beat me? Nobody can beat me. He welcomed wearing the black hat as the bad guy. And he made it where either fans loved him or hated him. And they paid money to see him lose or to see him win. And then his fans could talk their point about how he's the GOAT. And I just think today that is a huge part of the problem, because these guys don't want to fight anybody good. And if they do, they want life-changing money with one fight. Now, can you blame them? No. But is that reality? I don't think so.
You know, we just got to go into sports not thinking about each other. In other words, the athletes shouldn't think about whether the fans care, because at the end of the day, what is it? It's a job, right? You get paid professional money to do professional sports. Fans should not think that athletes care about them, because they don't. A lot of athletes don't care about their fans. They don't. They're there to do a job. They have fun at it. A lot of them have fun at their job.
Well, think about this too.
I mean, it's a give-take situation. That's what I'd say.
Okay. But think about this. When the Eagles and the Cowboys play, now the Cowboys are more hated by Eagle fans than I think the Eagles are by Cowboy fans. But my point is, Eagle fans and Cowboy fans will get in fist fights during the games and after the games. But yet Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts will be photoed at a club or a restaurant together, sitting together, having dinner and a drink. It's like, and a lot of the professional athletes that I know, and I'm sure you do too, and I know, let's see, besides fighters, I know more than a few NFL players and, you know, MLB players and, you know, a couple hockey players live in my development. And it's like, the hatred is not there. They all know, or they go into it with the idea, this is a business. I have a 10-year window and I want to manage that window well enough so when I can no longer make that big money on the ice, on the field, on the court, I don't have to go get a job. I can live off of my investments. And you kind of can't blame them. And then with fighters, it's even more so for the fact that their career could be shorter. It could end much quicker. Less of them make the huge money that the other guys do. And it's like, you know, some people resist it when I talk about it, but I just think, I hate to say it, and they think, I don't hate to say it, but it's the truth. The reason why we have all these streams today and we have to pay for everything is because of Floyd Mayweather. He changed the culture where boxing fans almost think that if I don't have to pay extra to see you, you're not worth it. And if you lose, even if you lose to somebody good, you're not quite worth it. And it wasn't like that the whole, in the history of the sport, so much to this point. Before, guys would have 10 losses and still be considered great fighters and a big draw. Excuse me.
Yeah. I think with boxing and fans, it's a little bit different because it's an individual. It's not a brand. So in other words, like you can have Dallas and Eagle fans fighting
right
over the brand, whereas they're not fighting over, you call Dak this or you call Jalen Hurts. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, they never diss each other.
You're a Cowboys fan, no matter who is playing for your team.
Right. They cheer for the uniform.
Yeah, they cheer for the uniform. Whereas boxing, it is more individual because it's more personal.
Well, that's what
you have your favorite fighter, you have your one you don't like, whatever the case may be. I don't know where the fandom has fallen off at, or where boxing has not taken it back up. There's something that went wrong in the 2000s when boxing was, after boxing in the 90s and the 80s were in the 60s and 70s even were good, were great. Now it's like, who really cares?
Well, but Brian, here's the thing though. Just the other, when was it? I think it was in June that Boots fought Zejas, and a lot of people complained about it was $80. But guess what? The fight only went 7 rounds, but it was exciting as all hell for the entire fight. I don't know anybody that complained about shelling out $80 for that fight that night. And that's the thing. When you match two guys that are really, at the top, and in this case they were both undefeated, when you match that and they give you a great fight, boxing is still more fun to watch than MMA or the NFL. When you get that quality, the problem is we just don't see that. And if Joshua and Fury isn't the perfect example. Now look, there's a chance it could turn out to be a great fight, but the odds of that are minuscule. The only thing they have going for them are the names. However, the fact that, Fury's 37, Joshua's 36, neither guy is what they were. It's sort of like, when Ali and Frazier had to throw in Manila, okay? Nobody expected it to be a great fight. Now, look, I don't think it was as good as their first fight, but in the annals of boxing, most people consider that the third fight the greatest heavyweight championship in history. And why? Because at the time, Ali 33 and Joe 31, even though they weren't as good as they were 4 years earlier, they deteriorated together. And they had no defense at the time that night. So everything they threw, it was brutal to watch. And that's why they both had health issues afterwards. But they couldn't miss each other. And it was a great fight. Could Fury and Joshua turn out to be that? I don't think so, because they're not the caliber of fighters that Ali and Joe were, and Anthony Joshua was nowhere near as durable as they were. But it could turn out to be a great fight. But the reason why it's a big fight, Brian, is because even though these guys are declined, the fact that you're going to be able to wake up that day and know that you're going to see Fury and Joshua in the ring at the same time, people will be excited. Just like Mayweather and Pacquiao was 5 years too late. And it was the biggest grossing fight ever because of the names. So it's like the sport could turn itself around, but because of the model today, and the fact is you have to jump through hoops to get streams, and to date, even though they've improved, like even the last fight that was on Netflix, Brian, the picture wasn't as clear as you would get on HBO or NBC. What do you got there, Holmes? It's the truth. The boxers, very few make it in their higher caliber, meaning not everyone is going to win a title. It's not even 50-50. Very few make it. Well, I mean, that's a good point. It's true.
I think in this day and age, we shouldn't have problems with streaming, considering
You would
we're more
think that we wouldn't, but we
technological.
do.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. You shouldn't have that. First of all, second of all, you don't have the matches like you had in my era when I was watching boxing, the 80s and the 90s, where you had a consistent slate of heavyweight fighters that were really good, and they had good names and they could fight.
Right.
And you could draw. I didn't hear nobody complaining about that either. I mean, a lot of people complain about the Tyson fights because sometimes he'd floor
In
his
the early
opponent
in the
first and
80s,
second.
in the mid to late 80s, they didn't last long.
But still,
But they still wanted to see him fight because he was exciting.
exactly, and they still paid that money to see him on pay-per-view. So I mean, and with other boxers as well during that time frame. Now you don't have that fanfare. You don't have dominant boxers in this era, I don't feel.
And you don't have the rivalries like you had before.
Yeah. And you don't
And
have
Brian,
boxers
that's
talking,
all because.
well, I mean, I guess they talk stuff to each other, but not like.
But see, they have to do that because they don't fight. So they have to go on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and become, the champs of that, which to his credit, even though I don't like the guy, Ryan Garcia has mastered. But the problem is too, and I hate sounding like, the old man get off my yard, but like this is the case. In the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, you could see Sugar Ray Leonard fight on ABC, or I'm sorry, ABC in January, and then mid-February, you'd see Thomas Hearns fight on NBC, and then, one would fight again, and then you would see the rivalry. So by the time they both had a title in 81, they fought, and it was huge because everybody knew who they were. And we saw Leonard in the Olympics. Hearns didn't make the Olympics, but he went through the trials and beat a lot of good guys, but he was eliminated by Aaron Pryor. And that's the other thing. Boxing isn't even in the Olympics. I remember as a little kid. I was too young to see Frazier and Ali in the Olympics, but I saw George Foreman as a 10-year-old. And it's like, I was just blown away by that. And it's like, so what happens? George Foreman, and once he wins a gold medal, he ends up fighting on TV, 3 or 4 times a year. And then, you follow his progression. Not many boxers are going to win a title. Very few make it. Exactly. But it's easier today, Holmes, because there are 4 titles and all 50 divisions.
Yeah. It's
Another
like,
problem.
It's kind of thing is like how sports is going nowadays as well. It's like football is getting less defensive. It's not hard hitting like it used to be. If it's hard hitting, you're going to get a penalty for it. Even baseball is taking some hits. Hockey is basically the same, but they've gotten a kind of they
don't fight like they did.
They don't fight like they used to because that's a penalty now. I think they've kind of relaxed on that. NASCAR is another one. You can't watch a damn race without there being a stage. Cautions up the butt. Nobody cares about all that stuff.
Let me ask you this. I know.
Go ahead.
As we close out, let me just get you on this. You're a big football fan. Is Dan Marino one of the top 5 quarterbacks ever? I've been seeing that a lot lately.
Top 5. I don't know about top 5.
Let's just say Montana, Brady, and Manning are definitely 3 of the 5. Who is Marino? Could Marino crack the top 5? Let's just say since 1980. How about if we do that? Because it's a different era. You can't compare Marino to Unitas or Sonny Jurgensen,
right,
or Otto Graham.
I'd still say I wouldn't say he's top 5. I wouldn't say he's top 5. I'd say he's.
You would or wouldn't?
Wouldn't. I wouldn't say he's top 5.
Okay. If he won a Super Bowl, would he be top 5?
Super Bowls don't matter to me, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm glad to say that. It's a team game.
Yeah, it's a team game. The
team game
gets you to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Now, see, I was a huge Miami fan and Marino fan,
Mhm.
and I used to
I like
cry
Marino
he didn't
too.
have the help and so forth. But you know what, Brian? I loved him, but he did not play great in a lot of their playoff games. And of the 10 playoff games he lost, only 2 of those teams went on to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same theory I have about Barry. I love Barry. I think he's one of the best running backs ever to play the game. But if you ever look at playoff games, they either shut him down totally because the Lions, they were like a one-dimensional team anyway, and all you had to do is put like 12 in a box for
Well, you're a
Barry and
Lions
stop
fan,
him.
so you know that, like I am with Marino being a Dolphins fan. But let me ask you this: if Barry was on the Cowboys, would that have been the case?
No, I
If
think
he was on the
Cowboys were the
Cowboys
best
in the
team.
'90s,
Yeah, the best team in the 90s. They were one of the best teams in the 90s. So, yeah, he
so
would have
would he
been.
have been shut down then?
No, because they would have had,
So
they
see,
had
you're a
better
victim of your
offensive
team.
line,
Yep, better
a better
receiver,
offensive
better
line,
quarterback,
better
everything.
quarterbacks, better
Yeah,
receivers, just better offensive things all around. You had a better offensive coordinator at the time. You had better head coach,
everything.
all the
So
plays.
basically, you are basically at the mercy of who picks you. I mean,
Right.
look at Mendoza. He's gone to the Raiders. That's not a great spot.
Well, I think the Raiders are doing it fine by getting Kirk Cousins and letting him lead the pack for a while and letting Mendoza.
Maybe that'll work out, but history doesn't point to that being a good spot.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, you got to look at it like this too. History changes, so I mean, all they could do is
You're right.
They need to go back to what they used to do with quarterbacks. Let them sit there with a clipboard for a couple of years, a couple of years, something like that, and then put them into that system because you got to have somebody to mentor. I know a lot of veteran quarterbacks these days don't like that term because they don't want to do that. But in essence, that's what they do. All you got to do is just sit behind them and watch what they do, watch the decision making progress. You don't have to be Joe Montana. You don't have to be Tom Brady. You don't have to be Dan Marino. You can be the guy that says, I want to see what his decision making process is when this happens. That's what you got to look at. Nobody's going to be Aaron Rodgers. You know what I'm saying?
All I can say is this:
arm and stuff. Yeah.
is football season is coming up, and I like it and I don't like it. I like it because college occupies Saturday, the NFL occupies Sunday, and then we get a game on Monday night and then Thursday night. But I just hate to see the summer end, and the fact that there's only 4 or 5 weekends left really bums me out. I guess we're out of time.
Yes, we are.
That'll do it for the night. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to tune in next week. Jack's going to have on Robert Cassidy Jr. As you know, his father was a terrific light heavyweight fighter back in the 60s. And he wrote a book. I think it's about, did he say it's about his father?
Yeah.
Okay. That ought to be a great read. I know this much. I'm going to do a little research on Bobby Sr. just to be ready for the book so I can hit Bobby with Jr. with some questions. Until then, thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.